What's up? Here to do a little video today. Going to do a quick little tour of Prospect Park. This is a park, you know, I guess you could call it the little brother, little sister to Central Park. We're going to walk around the park, talk about the history, what was here before, etc. It's going to be a quick one, but you know, a lot of people wonder what's Prospect Park. A lot of people don't really know much about it, so we're going to try to fix that today. Before we start, Rob, how are you?
Pretty good.
You're pretty good? You don't sound so sure, but that's okay, because I don't care. I'm just kidding, man. Relax. But we're going to walk around. Before we do that, too, guys, please check out the Patreon. Huge help. That's why we fund these things. Guys, give it a little like. Come on. Even if you've seen one of these before, you're going to like it. You know that. And guys, go ahead and subscribe. Get that out of the way, and let's keep this going. Rob, what do you think? Are you still hurt about me saying that I don't care thing?
A little bit.
Well, we're going to have to get over it because we got a lot to shoot. So let's get started. Hey, how's it going? No big deal, I just left that kid's birthday party to come and start this talk, baby. We're gonna tell you a little bit about the park first, but before we get into the park, talk to you about what was here before it. So let's go all the way back to 17,000 years ago, when I was graduating high school. I'm kidding. Anyways, the Wisconsin Glacier was receding at the end of the Ice Age, and it pulled all this earth and all this dirt up, revealing things like creating things like moraines of Long Island, and also, for example, in Central Park, all that schist, all the granite that's exposed is because of the same thing. It's schist. That's right. Central Park is full of schist. Huh? Look at that. We're stepping in schist. Oh. And I know you're judging. You're like, oh, Tom, that's such a corny joke. Well, next time you're in Central Park with your niece or nephew, and they're getting tired of hearing you talk about your Gary V podcasts or whatever you're listening to, use that joke, and then you'll remember me, and then you'll be thankful. Yeah, they're gonna love that. Anyways, you had the Wisconsin Glacier. A lot of this was rural, by the way. I'll talk a little bit about the farms and stuff at another stop, but this area too participated and was a part of one of the most important battles in Revolutionary War history, huh? All you American Revolution buffs. So on August 27, 1776, started the Battle of Long Island. Very important battle. Well, it was a loss, unfortunately, a big L for old Washington, but they passed through this area here. So we're here at a place called Battle Pass Hill. This would have been Battle Pass Hill. There's the Dongan Oak Monument down a little bit south of us, and it was basically where they felled this big oak. They were trying to stall the Hessian troops that were kind of pushing the Continental Army up Brooklyn, and the British actually came around and outflanked them. This sent them west over towards what is today the Old Stone House, which I covered in my Park Slope video. That's right, watch that. But the Old Stone House was where the Maryland 400 kind of put up a big fight, and it was those brave 400 that prompted George Washington to say, good God, what brave fellows I must this day lose. Very formal way to speak while you're watching everyone get slaughtered. And Lord knows I probably would have been watching it being like, oh crud, they're coming after me, I better get the hell out of here. Ah! But these monuments, there are a few of these monuments and plaques put around here, one of them having been designed by Stanford White, who was murdered in 1906. Whoa, murdered. On top of the old Madison Square Garden, which he designed. Crazy story, that's a whole nother thing. So you can kind of come around here, but the takeaway from all this is it was all rural, and it was a big part of the American Revolution. The only thing really rural about Brooklyn these days is all the flannel you'll see, you know. I'm gonna go stop by and grab a Dunkaroos from this kid's birthday party, and we'll keep moving. All right, so I was telling you how this used to be rural, huh? Well, look at this behind me, the old Lefferts house. So keep in mind, this is actually was the house of a man named Peter Lefferts, a Continental Army lieutenant who had this little house and 240 acres. Pretty crazy, 240 acres around it. Now, by the way, keep in mind, this was also moved here in 1917. It was actually like 6 blocks away, but they moved it. It's now a little museum, pretty neato. And his family, 8 people lived here, as did 12 enslaved people. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, Tom, hold on a second. I thought New York was a progressive place. First of all, don't ever even think of interrupting me again. Second of all, Yeah, it is a pretty progressive place, but it's got a thick history with slavery, unfortunately. At one point, it was actually the second highest percentage of slave owning in the country, behind only Charleston, South Carolina. That's right, that Charleston, South Carolina. So, it was very common for them to live at the house or on the farm with the owners as well. So this is the Lefferts house, pretty little house. This is what the area was. So it's a little museum right here in the park. One of the oldest houses in New York, right here in Prospect Park. Pretty neato. Not the only thing in this park that predates the park. For example, on the other side, there's the Quakers Cemetery. Now, we can't get into that because it's closed off to the public, but they were burying people, the Quakers, a religion. I don't know if you guys know about the Quakers, but they were burying people there from the 1820s, and then in the 1850s they kind of made it an actual official cemetery with tombstones and all that stuff. Some famous people. By the way, I talked to the Quakers in the Flushing video that you guys should watch. That's kind of was their stomping ground. The famous Flushing Remonstrance was trying to protect the Quakers' right to worship. Became kind of a model for the right to the freedom of religion in the United States. Anyways, I'm rambling. But the Quaker cemetery there, home to the grave of Montgomery Clift. You know who Montgomery Clift is, Rob?
Yeah.
Do you? The famous actor?
It sounds familiar.
Well, that doesn't help at all, but it's okay because he was a famous actor who got buried there because his mom was a Quaker. He has a famous quote about acting, actually, where he says, "If you're playing Romeo and your Juliet is a pig, you better find something you love about pigs." Very, very great acting advice, but that's what I guess what it is to be an actor. No big deal. I would know a little bit about that. Used to be an actor myself. Okay. So these are some of the things that predated the park. One last one we'll talk about, which is important to the park itself, and we'll get to that one next. But Lefferts house, pretty neat. Peter Lefferts, good old Petey Leffy. All right. Oh, by the way, I'm right next to the carousel and the Prospect Park Zoo. You get to go see the peacocks jumping on the roofs over there, and the kids going up and down the little carousel. Hold on to those things, they're just terrified for their life. All right, let's go. Okay, so we talked about how there were different farms and plots of land and all this stuff on the land that became Prospect Park, but this was kind of the last iteration of it. This is Litchfield Villa. It was owned and built by a man named Edwin Litchfield, and it was actually designed by a man named Alexander Jackson Davis, who was a famous architect here in the mid-1800s in New York. He actually designed what is today the Federal Hall National Monument. Pretty cool. But this was built as this guy's home. Now, this is 1857. This is before this was the park, right? But this guy built it. It was 50 acres. He had his own greenhouse, like chicken coop, all this kind of crazy stuff. But then when the park was open, they took away a lot of his land, but they let him live here, actually. So then his wife dies, and what do you do when your wife dies? You backpack through Europe. So he goes to Europe. Well, actually, he wasn't backpacking. He just went over to live there for a while, but then he dies, and this is eventually ceded to the park. Now, keep in mind, this guy, Edwin Litchfield, was kind of responsible for the neighborhood Park Slope. It's called Park Slope because it's a slope up to the park, but he helped develop the area. And here, by the way, along the west side of Prospect Park is what they call the Gold Coast, right? All these pretty homes and all this stuff where all the well-to-do people lived, but it slopes down towards the Gowanus Canal. So that was the commercial area, getting up to the residential area. The Gowanus Canal is very close to us, so close you can smell it. Which I guess isn't saying much because it smells like hell, but it's right down here, pretty close. So this was built in 1857, then the land was ceded to the park, most of it was ceded to the park in 1869. So now today it's actually the Parks Department, so you can go in there and talk to them about the irrigation patterns or something, I don't know. Not a big improviser, what can you do? So the tiles in the inside there, and the tiles in like the little arches and stuff, were actually, they say, well, they were made by Ma and Company, who actually designed the tiles for the U.S. Capitol, and they say that these tiles were actually left over from that batch. Kind of interesting. So, if you ever want to reenact January 6th, put on your cargo camo shorts and your Oakley sunglasses and just come down here instead of making all the way to Washington. All you freaks. Sorry, it's a little dark. Sorry about that, Rob. Really put you in a compromising position there. All right, well, I'm really rambling. Yeah. right, so let's get into it. The park itself, huh? The park itself was kind of an idea that came about because of Central Park. So Central Park was opened in 1858. I did that already, covered that in a video a long time ago. Where you been? Watch that one. But Brooklyn, remember, was its own city back then, and it was growing very quickly. So it's like, oh, we don't want to be some kind of Johnny-come-latelys. We got to keep up with the Joneses, I guess. It's what they did. So in 1859, 1 year after the park, Central Park opened, they actually passed a New York State Legislature law or allowing the acquiring of land for a Brooklyn version of the park. So it's done. And initially, this man named Egbert Veal, who, yeah, that's the guy's name, Egbert, pretty cool, Eggy, if you will, I guess, to his friends, but he was going to be the initial guy to design the park. He was actually the surveyor of Central Park. And eventually, guess who they picked up to design the park, huh? Who do you think, Rob?
Elton John.
You son of a, no, it was actually Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, the two guys who designed Central Park. Now here's the deal, those guys were like the ultimate tag team. Those of you guys who watch wrestling, those of you guys who haven't outgrown watching wrestling. So Calvert Vaux was actually the landscape guy. He was the landscape architect. They actually say he coined the term landscape architecture. And then you have Frederick Law Olmsted, who was kind of the student of humanity. He was the one who studied the parks in Europe. He had written on slavery in the southern states. He had all these theories on how to keep people interacting and what's healthy, etc. He was also big on naturalism, big fan of like the transcendentalists like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. So those two guys together were able to make these great parks like Central Park, but then they were brought on to do Prospect Park. So the guy who was responsible for hiring them is a man named James Stranahan, very important name in Brooklyn history. He was a big Brooklyn guy. He was helped with the Brooklyn Bridge, with all kinds of stuff, but a big deal. And so they were hired in 1865. The park itself opened in 1867, and it's a testament to their theories on naturalism and pastoralism. In fact, I'm standing in front of the Long Meadow, which is like 90 acres, just the biggest uninterrupted meadow in any U.S. park. And I'm talking about urban parks, all right? You freaks, you guys are already sitting there at your keyboards like, what about Yosemite? Ugh. I'm talking about urban parks. So, pretty cool. This is one of the many things. We're gonna go to different little spots in the park so you get a kind of vibe. The whole park itself is about 526 acres. Very nice, and instead of just standing here rambling, why don't we just keep it moving, huh? Okay, so the park is opened, but it evolves as people evolve, and you see little buildings and things that were designed afterwards that kind of catered to the new tastes, right? We talked about how it was all natural at the beginning, it was just fields and stuff, meant to be a slice of nature. Well, other things were built later on like this. This is the boathouse. It's on the 60-acre water, which I guess is the end of it, but it's a lake. 60 acres all the way down there. It kind of snakes around a little bit. But this was actually built by Helmley, Hudswell, and Huberty, very famous architectural firm from back then. They actually designed the Greenpoint Savings Bank, which I talked about in my Greenpoint video. Oh, look at that, all connected, baby. But this is right here on the water. It now houses the Audubon Society. That's right, all you birders. I want to get your heads out of your binoculars for this one. The Audubon Society is housed in here. They go around looking at birds and taking pictures and stuff. A lot of birds pass through New York. Don't know if you knew that. And also, James Audubon used to live in what is today Washington Heights. Damn, this is all connected. Make it look easy. But this is just one of the things that there's also the peristyle. That was built in 1905 at the south end of the lake. Peristyle is just like a bunch of columns organized around a perimeter. Look at that, you're learning architecture too. Unbelievable. So they got all these little things that were built at the turn of the century in the City Beautiful's Beaux-Arts architectural style, which I've talked about in a million videos, but it also added and supplemented the nature, I guess, theme of the whole thing. You have the nature theme, natural, pastoralism, but you also got the fancy stuff. And you'll see animals kind of, in addition to the birds and stuff, you'll see other animals. There's also the zoo, which I talked about earlier. The zoo, pretty cool. But actually, this is actually true. I don't know if you know this, Rob. In 1987, an 11-year-old jumped into the bear cage. You know that?
I had no idea.
Yeah, and he actually was taken under the wing of the bears and raised as a cub for years. No, that's not true. They mauled him. but pretty crazy. Got to blame the parents on that one. All right, well, anyways, yeah, we're gonna keep moving. Let's go see more stuff. So I'm now in the ravine, which is another part of the park. It's 150 acres of woodland, huh? Pretty cool. Yeah, it's the biggest forest in Brooklyn, the biggest collection of green space in the borough, if you don't count the produce section at Trader Joe's, I guess. But this is what made one of the other thing that made the park so popular. Over 100,000 people visited here in 1868, the year after it was opened. Pretty neato. Also got things like this steady stream of water, which is making me wonder where the nearest restroom is. I should go check a map. All right, well, let's keep showing you the park. All right, and here we have behind me the band shell. So by the way, Robert Moses, who was basically the head of all building and development and highways and sewers, everything from the 1930s all the way until the end of the 1960s, he helped also develop the park. He's the one who added the Prospect Park Zoo. He also built band shells like this one. And this is a great spot during the summer. You can come see some concerts here. I myself came and saw a concert of Jackson Browne. Huh? You guys know who Jackson Browne is, you kids? You know who Jackson Browne is, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah? He's the guy who sings the song These Days. It's the one that goes, well, I've been out walking. I don't do that much talking these days. These days. That was pretty good, huh? Rob?
Not bad. Not bad.
All right. Well, whatever. You kids, you're not gonna get a freebie from me. Free concert. Anyways, this is the band shell. Another cool thing in the park as it's evolved over time. He's also the guy who sings "Running on Empty." Running on empty, running on, running blind, running into the sun, but I'm running behind. Okay, let's keep moving. So they had planned this like elliptical entrance to the park, but over time, as the decades went on, different styles emerged. So I'm standing in front of what is today called Grand Army Plaza. You can see the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, this big old arch. Unfortunately, it's under scaffolding. You know the old saying, New York's gonna be a beautiful city if they ever finish it. But anyways, it's behind scaffolding, but with the advent of CGI technology, I can show you right now what it actually looks like. There you go, pretty impressive, huh? That effect cost me $45,000. But this was built in the 1890s, 1892 for the arch, 1895 for the figures. On top is actually a winged chariot there with the quadriga, the horses pulling it, and Victory there. She actually fell from it in the 1970s. It fell down, a lot of winged figures falling in the 70s, unfortunately. And around this area, lots of sculptures and stuff. Here to the east is a sculpture of General Henry Warner Slocum, a very distinguished war guy. And this, famously, he's got the name of the General Slocum boat that sank off the coast of Manhattan in 1904. June 11th, 1904, a day that will live in infamy. It's the day that a bunch of kids and moms were headed to their annual picnic for church down in the East Village, and it sank. Unfortunately, it caught fire and sank off the coast of Manhattan. People were watching, like women jumping and drowning, and little babies trying to float in the life vests, which were deficient, and they were completely defective, and they were just sink to the bottom. And all these people washed up. 1,021 people. It was the biggest disaster in New York history before 9/11. That's right, it's the point of the video where I bum everybody out by mentioning 9/11. Sorry, but it was actually a real thing. You gotta know about this stuff, man. You gotta know about things like the General Slocum disaster, but that's General Slocum himself. So next time you're here for the farmer's market, you guys are picking through the granola, just tell your date about the General Slocum disaster and bum them out with history. The best way to do it. Anyways, this is Grand Army Plaza. It shows you also an example of what's called the City Beautiful movement. I may have mentioned that earlier, but this shows you how even though the park was designed in Vauxhall and Olmsted's kind of pastoral and natural style, over time, different things are added on. You know, you got the columns and the arches and the adornment and the sculptures. That is City Beautiful, baby. That is Beaux-Arts. Huh? Look at that. It's how the city keeps evolving and adding on to itself. And here you actually have what is called Flatbush Avenue, which is one of the main drags here, even in Brooklyn, a very important kind of path, take you all the way up to the water, to the river. But it actually maps out a Native American path that used to be used by the Canarsie, Lenape Indians who used to inhabit Brooklyn back in the day. So very important, very important path. All right, we got to keep this moving, baby. I'm rambling, so we're almost done. Don't you worry. All right, let's keep it going. All right, we made it to the end, baby. Look at that. Well, look at that. We covered what used to be here. We covered the Revolutionary War. We covered farms. We covered Litchfield Villa. We covered the park itself, and we covered how it's developed over time. And today it's this beautiful place where you can go walk your dog, go jogging. Lord knows everyone here is jogging today. But yeah, we covered everything. Rob, did you learn something?
Couple things.
Couple things. Every time, just a couple things. Hey, that's a couple more things than you knew before. That's all that matters. But guys, if you liked it, please check out the Patreon. That's how we fund these things. That's how I'm eventually going to afford one of those sick, Fast and the Furious cars. Also, like and subscribe, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, I don't know. Can you think of anything else?
I got nothing.
You got nothing. Yeah, you're just excited. You're just in a rush to get out of here, aren't you? Unbelievable. Kids these days, they don't want to work. All right, I need to stop before Rob quits. Okay, well, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks again for watching. I don't know what to tell you. Thanks for making it this far, too. Although this was a shorter one. I'm rambling now. All right, I'm going to go buy a churro and eat it. See y'all later. Sick.